Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Barriers and Boundaries Resilience Leadership Podcast. My guest today, Ron Camacho. Man, we've already kind of chalked it up some before recording, and I'm just super excited about the engagement, the depth of what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get into that, I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about your background and really just how you got to this point where you knew this needed to be addressed.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on. So 30 years in the business of law enforcement. I'm in my fourth police department, second one as the chief of police. And a lot of this began at my first police department. So York, Pennsylvania, kind of a tough place, started in 1995, worked my way up very quickly. It's a violent place, rough place to work. And because I worked my way up so quickly, there's a lot of stress involved there. And I also had some untapped and unresolved trauma from my childhood. So you put somebody in a super stressful environment with untapped and dealt with trauma. It's a recipe for anger and low self-esteem and issues. So as I rose up the ranks and had more responsibility put on my shoulders and was given these missions to accomplish, that stress level rose up and I saw this anger coming out to get things done, right? That was the stress pushing me and this ego coming out to get things done. And I did get things done. And I thought that that was the way, that was good leadership, that I was accomplishing this mission. And I had a team of people that worked for me. I had a good team. And eventually when I got promoted to the next level, when I was at a captain's level in that department, where I had like 90 people working for me, almost the whole department, I was leading with only about 20% of that department. 20% of that department was on Team Camacho. And that's no way to lead any organization. Again, that stress on top of me. I joke around, I say my leadership style was between Patton, Attila the Hun, and Genghis Khan. You know, that was me. Angry every day, loud, yelling, and just took things very personal. If you were late for court and I got a call from a judge that you were late for court, I took that personal. If I told you not to do something and you did it, I took that personal. I challenged people's integrity, which in policing that's a tough thing, right? Our integrity is very important to us. And it was just a beast about accomplishing the mission, but forgetting that core value that I learned in the Army when I was a paratrooper with the 82nd, take care of your men. And I only had 20%, and the rest of them, they were chaff. Again, not good leadership. So eventually that was creeping into home. I also tell another story about my wife at the time. We're divorced now. She was a nurse, a baby nurse at the local hospital. A lot of my people went to have their babies there. And they would eventually find out that she was my wife. And we would get the comments. She would come home with the comments from their wives saying, how could you be married to him? It was almost like she was married to like Frankenstein or a monster. The stories about me, I'm sure they were super exaggerated, but this was how I was influencing those officers, that they were telling these stories to their wives about this monster that I was. And these women telling my wife, hey, you're so nice. How could you be married to this guy? This guy was such a jerk. And at that time, I laughed about it. I almost liked that reputation. But then that creeped in and was creeping in to my home life. And it started affecting the marriage, and we had to go to therapy or marriage counseling, which quickly turned into therapy. The counselor said, hey, I can't even work on this marriage until I work on you, your trauma, your issues. Because I remember that first session, she commented that the counselor did about how angry I was. And I mean, it's funny now how long my fuse is. I don't get angry often. I mean, it's rare. But back then, I was angry every day. Every day, the little slightest thing would just set me off. So I worked with this counselor therapist for 6 months and worked on this childhood trauma of, it wasn't physical abuse, it wasn't sexual abuse. It was my father telling me that I was no good, I wasn't going to succeed in life, I was a bum, basically, and killing my self-esteem, which I had. And it affected me quite a bit throughout my life. And I'm in my 40s at this time, 41, 42, when I'm finally healing this and getting that peace by healing this and realizing that I didn't have to prove anything to anybody anymore. And finally letting this anger go because I was healing inside. So I retired from that department right at the end of that counseling. So unfortunately, a lot of those people that I hurt didn't get to see the transformed Ron Camacho, but through the years, and that was in 2013. So in the years that I've left, I have mended quite a few bridges and have made amends with quite a few of those people.
Mm, that's quite the journey. And I talk about resilience here. I talk about the barriers that we kind of have to work through, establishing healthy boundaries. To me, that's what resilience is: learning from the adversity, learning from things that you've overcome, and being able to apply it to a better future. Yeah, that's amazing. Can we talk about anger for just a bit? You saw it in yourself. How about now seeing it in others? What's your response when you see it in other people now?
So I tell this story in my last police department. I was friends with a council member, council president, a recovering alcoholic. He's very open with his journey with that. And he told me, hey, a recovering alcoholic can tell an alcoholic a mile away. They can tell people. Well, I'm a recovering egomaniac, and I can see somebody with an ego problem. And a lot of it stems from that anger. I can pick that up. And there's many times where I can see that. I can pick up that insecurity, and I see that because I see myself. I see those same little patterns. I see the same little things that I saw in myself. And I even saw it back in the first place and started trying to deconstruct things and saying, why are you angry? And that's what the good thing with therapy is. And I'm very open with my journey with therapy. And not everybody needs therapy. You can go about fixing this and working through this in many different ways. We all come with, when we're battling this anger, it comes in different levels. Mine's was pretty bad, and I needed therapy to go through that. But other people can go through different things. But like, I see it, and then I start trying to deconstruct this, right? I start trying to see, where's this coming from? And almost always there's something in that past that contributes to this in some way, shape, or form. And it can manifest its way in several different ways. And it's almost always either with trauma or the insecurity, or trauma that causes the insecurity. So then we have to start working on that and saying, hey, we got to start building that person up. For me, a lot of it was removing that shame that, hey, you are good. You are a good person. That these words, that this powerful person in your life, where did his trauma come from? And it helped me a lot to go and research and dig into this guy's life, my father, and figure out why he was that way, where his anger came from. And it kind of put things into perspective on why he was his way, which translated to me. And I'm so glad that I did this work so that I could break that chain, so that my relationship with my kids is very different than his relationship with me. I've forgiven him, and we have a relationship now, and the past is the past. And in that therapy piece, at some point in time, you switch from, okay, that's where it came from. Now you have to start taking accountability, and now it's you and what you're doing. And after that, therapy opened the door and opened your eyes, but then you have to do work after that. And I just started doing a lot of research and finding these things that help me personally continue growing as a person, continue evolving, and continue putting my anger into that place and dealing with it. And a lot of it has to do with just having these conversations and being able to be honest. And I think honesty, we're not honest anymore. There's facades upon facades here in society, which really irk me. And I get accused nowadays too much of being too forward with people, especially in my job now as a chief. There's political ramifications and political things where you have to tiptoe around some things sometimes. And I am very polite with everybody, but sometimes things need to be said, and you have to say them. You have to call a duck a duck.
I think that's crucial to understand. So I really wanted to highlight that importance of clarity in a conversation, in a message, in communication. When you're sharing information, I imagine earlier in your career being focused on some of that perfectionist attitude going into every single thing that you do. It's very limiting when you're only focused on the internal versus the big picture of a scenario. And so you engage with other leaders, you engage in conversations about emotional intelligence, insecurity, the ego driven desire to succeed. How do you ensure that boundary for yourself?
So many of the people that I mentor now, especially my people here, they almost all the stories I tell are of me and failure, of how I failed. So I'm more telling them, don't follow my path, follow your own. But here's what failure looks like. So go and grow. And when I see them doing something that's unique and imaginative and successful, I praise tremendously. And we talk about that and we deconstruct that and I encourage them. I'm very hands off. Once we build that trust, I'm very, very hands off with them. And even when we don't have that trust, I give them a lot of freedom to go and explore and do what they need to do. And I think they enjoy that. They enjoy not having this overbearing person over their shoulder. They enjoy the ability to reach out to me anytime. I have built this relationship with them that's authentic and trusting and that they really enjoy. And it's very different than many of the other relationships they have because it is authentic, because they know that I care about them. And that's another thing during my journey. Once I got over my ego and I started this path of really building myself and working on myself and making myself the best that I could be, number one thing I did was put others before myself. And once I started doing that, my world changed exponentially. Once I put others before myself, the blessings that I received were tremendous. Even my wife now, she would say, I can't believe like this happened to you and this happened to you and this door opened and this door opened. And she's amazed. And I've had a great career. It still continues to go in a really positive direction. And it's because I don't think about me. I think about them and I push them forward and I just get rewarded by their successes. And they see that and they enjoy it. And that relationship it works and it's real and they appreciate that.
To have someone that's willing to say, "Hey, let's talk about your adversity. Let's talk about experiences that you're having. How is shaping you? How is this growing you?" And specifically as a leader, because that's a whole different ball game of growing as a person individually. Yeah, I'm going to show up, do my work, but I'm getting help for just me overcoming personal stuff as opposed to, hey, I have 90 people that I'm responsible for. I need to make sure I'm good to go each and every day because they deserve my best effort. They deserve to be taken care of. If you're in a positional authority, you want that influential authority too. You want to be, them to trust you. You want them to be able to look to you.
So I've been the chief here for a year and 8 months, a year and 9 months, and I've used the word delusional more in this time frame. And if I expand out for like the last 3 years, I've used the word delusional a lot. I've met a lot of people, civilian, cops, politicians. It just doesn't matter, just from all walks of life that are really delusional and their thinking and how they see themselves. So number one, I preach and tell people, make sure you have your self-awareness piece taken care of. Who you're looking in the mirror should be who everybody else sees. And that will keep your ego in check. And get an easy way to do that. Just one of those techniques that I have in the book is get somebody, and maybe that's a family member or a best friend, and don't get your grandmother that loves you and you're the greatest thing in the world, even if you came last place in the race. Get that aunt that's super critical or that uncle that's super critical, and that's the person you want to go to and say, what do you see? How do you see me? Or how do you see this? Or that best friend. I've had quite a few great right-hand men and women in my career where I needed them to be honest with me and for them to give me that great, hey, you're screwing up here, chief. You're messing up here. You need to take a left instead of a right to keep me in check. And that just made me a better leader. So self-awareness piece is tremendous, right? We lost empathy. And even in my profession where we deal with so much stuff, I'm not even talking about dealing with the community, which is super important. I'm talking about us internally dealing with our people. I see sometimes our leaders forget where they came from when they're dealing with like a young officer. Put yourself in their shoes. Remember when you were a young rookie. Take that into consideration when you're looking at their issues and how you're going to problem solve those issues. Instead of just looking at the straight discipline route, maybe there's a different way to go. So that's a big piece there. And I look at those two things, the introspection piece that I talked about. Now start having these conversations with yourself. Start really working on yourself, start looking and having these things so that you can start working on these pieces and really kind of know when there's a hole in your game, how to do it. Did you make these decisions the right way? And if you did, cool, great. So continue along those paths. If you didn't, if something was amiss, then go ahead and start making adjustments that way. Don't take things personal.
I want to touch on something you were talking about, coming alongside others. Because there's that mentoring type of role in that as well. And I want you to respond to this. One of the issues that I've seen with mentors, someone will come to a mentor and say, hey, look, I want to get to where you're at. Can you help me? And I think the problem that leaders have today is they don't know how to explain essentially what you just said, but they don't know how to help someone because they're thinking you're never going to go through the adversity that I went through.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to help you navigate something that I don't even know what your path is.
Right.
And so they're limited to, hey, here was my journey and here's the things that I've learned. Any insights into like mentoring, any healthy tips, boundaries maybe?
So one of the things I did when I first came here, I felt like the middle and upper tiers of the department, the leaders at those levels were underdeveloped, severely underdeveloped. Especially from where I came from a department in the Northeast Pennsylvania, and now I'm here in the South, and the education level wasn't there. The command schools weren't there, and they basically just weren't developed. So the way I sold it to my people were, hey, a lot of us Northerners, we're coming down here. We hate the cold. And more of us are going to come down here, and they're going to compete for these positions. So we need to get you developed, and we need to get you developed quickly. And I'm going to show you different ways on how to get developed. So I was able to open up and start getting them into command schools. Again, it was making them uncomfortable because now they have to go back to school. And some of these command schools are not easy. They're difficult. But I sold it to them and got the buy-in that if you want to progress in your career, this is a big check mark. I just had one of my captains, this happened this weekend, he got published in a magazine. So I've been published multiple times. I'm writing a book. And I said, hey, for your development, for your resume, it looks nice when you publish. Man, you could say, hey, I've been published here. And I worked with him. He gave me an idea. I worked on the article, gave him some tips. I knew a place where I've been published many times, hooked him up with the editor, got him in there. And just this weekend, he was published. And he was very, very happy. And we're going to take that. And we believe in celebrating successes. So internally in our department, we're going to push that out. And then to the community, we're going to push out that one of our captains published an article. So these are the kind of things that I, do to them to get them ready for the next position. And just showing them like, I'm not different than you. I'm really not different than you. I just had certain people help me along the way, and I'm going to do that too. We talk about education, and some of them have started going back to school. I just show them the different parts of the world that they can open up and go to. I introduced one of my guys to somebody that's in corporate security. He showed an interest in corporate security. And I said, I'll introduce you to somebody in corporate security. So I have these years and all these contacts because I've done quite a few things, and I share that with them and push that out to them. And that development there, they've really didn't have before, and they just enjoy it and appreciate it, and just makes them work extra hard for it, which makes my life a lot easier.
So let me ask, Ron, from 15, 20 years ago, someone comes to you and is interested in corporate security, as opposed to coming to you now, say, hey, I have an interest in this. The differences in what you're able to offer, I mean, it's staggering, right?
I didn't have a contact in corporate security. And if I did have a contact in corporate security, the guy probably would have taken a couple of weeks to get back to me. And if he did get back to me, whatever service he would have given me would have been substandard, because I didn't have that relationship with him, and I didn't have that connection. And then probably it wouldn't, depending on who that was, it might not have been important to me. But now that it's about them, and I'm at a point in my career where I don't need any more accolades. I've done just about everything that you can do. It's now about building them. And it's like a sport for me. I hate to say that, but this is my hobby sport. This is what, you might watch football. I don't watch football. This department right now is my hobby sport, my life. I'm obsessed with it, and I'm obsessed with it getting better and better and better with whatever
Yeah.
tools that I have at my fingertips. And this development piece and watching them get better is my main thing.
There's that difference between desiring success to where, okay, you have the nice wheels in the driveway. You can be successful that you get from your work, and you can also be successful in terms of what you give to your work and developing that craft. You treat it like an art form, you treat it like a sport. How are we getting better each day? And you've already said it, you get so much when you give to that craft. I think that's just a beautiful thing to be able to get to that place, especially getting from a place where being young, angry, and I've always heard anger is a secondary emotion to fear. Yeah, but people don't stop and say, what am I ashamed of? Or what am I really afraid of happening here? Because that's what's driving anger a lot of times is, what am I really afraid of happening here? But to get to a point where you're disciplined in that mindset of saying, wait, I'm getting angry. I'm just going to stop right here because I know what that leads to. It takes time to develop that discipline to get to that point where, oh, wow, you're not as angry as you were. Those moments still do pop up, but I just know what to do with it now. And it leads to opportunities to where you're literally helping other people succeed in their own lives.
It's funny. I had one of my best friends come to visit. So this is my best friend from my first apartment. A guy who saw me during that time. He was one of the 20%. He was one of my guys. So he never suffered the wrath of Camacho. He was on the good side. But he saw me plenty of times, the Game of Thrones dragon come out of me and just burn people with my words. So he came here to visit me and he was making jokes about, oh, do you have like soundproofing on the office? And people are looking at him like he has 5 heads. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, with him yelling all the time, they're like, yeah, I've never seen the chief mad. I don't know what you're talking about. And he was shocked. Like I said, hey man, I'm not that person anymore. That's not who I am. So I was proud that my people were like, yeah, that's not the chief. We don't know that. We don't know that person. That made me happy. And I love the guy, but that's who we knew. We worked together for 16, 17 years, and that's who we knew. He did not know this guy. We kept in touch for all that time, but he never was around me for an amount of time to see the transformation.
So you got a book coming out. I heard you mention a book. You're focusing on that. You're focusing on consulting and helping other leaders. Is that just within law enforcement?
It's not just law enforcement because ego transcends everything. It's all over the place. This thing that is ego. And I just don't think we talk about it enough. As you said earlier, we dibble dabble with emotional intelligence, but we really don't dive deep into it. It's very rare. In leadership classes, we'll have a 4-hour block on emotional intelligence, maybe if you're lucky, 8 hours that you'll talk about emotional intelligence and you'll hit some of these fine points, but they won't dive deep into self-awareness. They won't dive deep into introspection. They won't dive deep into empathy, and they definitely won't dive deep into the causes of ego.
So you want to offer tools, like not just talk about it, but you want to offer, this is how we actually get through this. You're offering resources and tools to manage this.
And some examples in there. There's many different things besides the big ones: self-awareness, introspection, empathy. So those are some of the bigger ones there. And ego suppression. There's tools to work on your ego. And I have them broken up into tools that you can do by yourself and tools that you do with others. So, for instance, tools that you do with others would be therapy, coaching, mentoring. And I even threw something in there like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you've never tried Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you have an ego problem, you will not have an ego problem after your first session of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when you've been tapped out 10 times and you outweigh your instructor by 50 or 60 pounds. It is one of the most humbling things that you can do in your life. And it just shows you, hey, you're not the Billy Badass that you think you are. And it is incredibly humbling. And I was a martial artist when I went. I already had some training and some skill when I started studying jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and it was still very humbling for me. And I outweighed my instructor by 100 pounds. He was straight from Brazil, Daniel Beleza, and tapped the hell out of us and everybody in there. And it was the nicest human being you ever met in your life. And he was a straight killer. And that is throughout basically all Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools across the world. And a lot of the The women that I taught in my classes, they journal a lot. They journal a lot more than men. And that was something that they used extensively to help them. And they have different techniques that they do. Some of them journal and then read it, and then or journal, wait till the end of the week and then read it, or end of the month. Some of them journal, write it down, tear it apart, don't read it again. But just the act of writing it down helps them. Meditation is one. Maybe that mentorship where that mentor keeps you in check, or that coach helps you develop your plan that you're developing yourself to move forward.
Nice. Well, I look forward to hearing when the book is released and an opportunity for you to come back on as a guest. I am very grateful for the work that you do. But then the additional work that you're doing now to shape more leaders to think about what it means to take care of other people. How do people follow what's going on in your work, and
Sure.
how will they stay up to date?
Well, it's funny. My department and I just went viral. So I just saw my Facebook jump by like 4,000 people. Yeah. So I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn under Ron Camacho. And I have a website for the book, Bringing Ego to the Forefront. It has its own webpage. And then CamachoConsulting.net has its own webpage. And eventually here in the near future, I'll have roncamacho.com. So everything will be under that umbrella. But for right now, I'm on LinkedIn a lot and I'm on Facebook a lot. So
Okay, I'll have those links in the description below. And if anybody's listening or watching, please have those conversations. What would you say to someone, I'll close with this. What would you say to someone that's afraid of engaging just because of the uncertainty of what they might uncover?
a technique that I do, again, with that introspection is before I'm having those difficult conversations, I'm having the conversation beforehand internally, and I'm having it and I'm opening up different doors. If this is said, I'm going this way. If this is said this way, if this is said, I'm going this way, so that I'm ready for just about anything that comes my way. I'm ready for the contrition. I'm ready for the denial. I'm ready for walls. I'm ready for different things. And you can't be ready for every contingency, but I'm basically preparing for just about everything so that I'm not surprised. And it's rare. I have been surprised. I'm not perfect, but it's rare that I get surprised when I'm having these tough conversations. And usually I'm over prepared. I'm having these internal conversations and I'm thinking of all these contingencies. And usually the simplest way is the way it goes, and be honest and truthful, but use empathy. Don't be a jerk when you're having those conversations. There's a way to be truthful with somebody. There's a way to use a scalpel instead of the axe, if you get my drift. Yeah.
I appreciate that, and thanks for your time and the empathy, the kind of that sensitivity to how explosive a conversation like that can be. The tact that you go into that with is so important. So, all right, my friends, Ron Camacho, please check him out. Click on the links, connect, and we'll keep striving for resilience, keep pushing for resilience here. And until next time, EB out here.